In this video, we're going to be taking a look at a driver that Bryson DeChambeau has had a big hand in designing with some very exciting technology. So without further ado, let's have a look at the LA Golf driver. Now this is a really interesting driver. I saw some early prototypes of this upwards of a year ago. So this is obviously a driver that's been deep in the research and development center. And the tech is really interesting. It's mainly about the face. There's a few other bits going on, which actually, when you look on the LA Golf website, isn't that well reported or publicized, but I've done some digging with the people at LA Golf to get a few of the answers on that as well. But starting with the main bit of tech, it's all about the face and what they're calling Face ID. So we've probably all heard, or we all know, that driver faces have curvature, so bulge and roll. So roll being the curvature from top to bottom, bulge being the curvature from heel to toe. And that's there to take advantage of gear effect. So we know if we hit the ball off the toe, club face is going to deflect a little bit open. And if we didn't have that curvature there, the ball would be rolling very quickly towards the front to the middle of the face, thus creating a very large hook. So the curvature on the toe helps you mitigate the draw effect or the hook of a toe strike by helping you start it a little bit further right, but also minimizing that side spin axis, which gives it the hefty hook, and vice versa off the heel. But what Bryson and LA Golf have been saying is that at many different speeds, the amount of curvature that is required on the face is very, very different. So for example, if I was to put very little speed into this shot, I'm just gonna hit a little tappy one, but try and hit it dead off the toe, that ball just starts to the right, and because there isn't enough momentum in my swing there is no advantage of gear effect. And I can show you that toe strike in just a second. So right off the toe, the ball starts right because of the curvature of the face, but because there's not enough speed in that strike, gear effect doesn't have a chance to take place. So look, as we zoom in, this is a centered strike that I hit a little bit earlier, and that's the last strike I hit there, which I was quite impressed with myself, got very deliberately off the toe. And vice versa, if I hit this off the heel, again, I'm gonna try and hit it in terms of straight, in terms of path, but hit it right out of the neck, then we can see that ball starts left, and because there's no momentum again or speed in that strike, it just continues along that path, and gear effect does not have the chance to take effect. So while that was quite an extreme example, I was obviously just hitting a very chippy little driver, it demonstrates what I was trying to say. When you think of someone like Bryson DeChambeau, who's swinging at upwards of 130 miles per hour, obviously in their minds, what they've brought to fruition here, those different levels of speed, however extreme I've just created there, require different levels of curvature. So what they're suggesting is the quicker you are, the more curvature you need on that club face to help make the driver more forgiving and turn your hooks into draws and your slices into fades. Whereas if you don't have quite as much speed, you can get away with a different face ID, they're calling it, because quite honestly, if you've got too much face curvature at a low speed, it might actually be detrimental to your game. So what LA Golf have done is they've designed and created, looking at their website, different faces specifically for different speeds. So starting with the Face ID 1312, and the reason they've numbered these is because of something I emailed about this, but I couldn't quite figure it out. And basically that 1312 is a measure of the bulge and the roll. So the unit of measurement is the radius of a circle in inches. A bulge being the curvature from side to side, roll being the curvature from top to bottom. So in this instance, you might think the larger number means it's a more curved face, but no, think about it. If you've got a large number, the circle is getting larger, so the radius of that circle in inches, so the actual severity of the curve gets less. So we'll see as you go up the chart with the higher swing speeds, the numbers get lower. So I hope that makes some sort of sense to you. So we've got the 1312, which is suitable for swing speeds below 90 miles per hour. We've got the 1211, which is for swing speeds 90 to 109. Then we've got the 1010, which I've got in my hand here, which is suitable for speeds 110 miles per hour to 124 miles per hour. Then you go up into some serious speed where you've got the 99 for 125 to 134. And I think there is actually one more that I couldn't actually see on the website, which was probably what's going to be in the hands of Bryson pretty soon. Now, in terms of how you get into this driver, currently there's an online fitting process that I went through, and I'm always a little bit skeptical of these online fitting processes because it was okay. They asked me a few questions to do with what my club head speed, what my current shot trajectory is, what my preferred shot shape would be, but it didn't get much more deep than that. So in my experience as a fitter, there's a few more nuanced things you'd want to know, moreover, to be able to fit someone really accurately. So for me, the fitting process is a little in its infancy maybe, and that could possibly get better. And finally, on that online fitting, there was a little bit of mystery around it, if you like. So come the end of the fitting, once I'd inputted my speeds and answered all the questions that were required of me, it kind of spat out what I was going to get, but it was only really the 1010 head it told me about. And I was fitted into, I believe, the LA Golf A series shaft, but I don't know what flex, I don't know what weight. That wasn't really specified at the end of the fit. It just kind of told me you're in the 1010 head. And moreover on that, the 1010 head doesn't give you any real base loft options. Is one head at 9.5. It does come with an adjustable sleeve where you can adjust it 1.5 either way, so you can get it between 8 and 11 degrees. But that's something you'll have to do subsequently to the fit. Once you receive that driver, you'll have to start seeing what you're seeing in terms of a ball flight and tune in your loft accordingly just yourself. Now, one interesting thing when it arrived, this driver, I mean, LA Golf are a little bit different. They like to do things a little bit different in terms of attitude, and that sort of came over when I unboxed it. The driver actually came in, I've never really had this before, it came in a kind of a sealed jiffy bag. Now, it's really cool, it's sort of a matte black finish, LA Golf all over it, but it was just a sealed jiffy bag that I'd never really seen before. It added a bit of theatre to the unboxing, which I kind of like. Also within the box when the driver arrived was this newspaper called the LA Golf Times. A little bit of fun from LA Golf where they're talking about Bryson, the design. There's lots of information about the driver. So there's a little bit of a story about the whole thing in there. Now, truth be told, I thought at the time when I opened it, is that a little bit gimmicky? Wasn't really used to it. Dan, who's on the camera here, showed it him earlier. He really liked it. He thought, good, someone's doing something a little bit different. So I guess all that's about how you perceive it, but that's enough of that. We want to know how it goes. Sorry to interrupt. If you are liking the content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button and comment down below. What do you think of this new LA Golf driver? But before we start comparing all this data and all the numbers, first impressions on the looks. Now, I've heard bits and bobs, and I've been reading the comments online when some of this has been leaked, and it hasn't been all that positive, or it's certainly been mixed. I actually really like it. The minimalist sort of sole where we've just got the embossed LA Golf over and over again. I've heard people not liking that. I think it looks really good to my eye. As we know, all this stuff is really subjective. And then down behind the ball, it's just inoffensive. It's a nice shape, it's nice and symmetrical. We've got nothing, no sort of split crowns, no multi-material crowns, just one sort of, it is matte, but it's quite a shiny matte crown and just the LA Golf logo to centralize it. So nothing offensive at all about the looks. However, one slight criticism I do have of the looks is a little bit of what you see here on the crown. Now I see this a lot with these smooth matte crowns. They look great when they're fresh out the packet, but as soon as you get any moisture or fingerprints on, the smearing or the smudging is just so obvious. So a lot of manufacturers are sort of hiding this with faux carbon or some texture on the crown like Strixon have done with their ZXi range. I think that's something that LA Golf might want to consider moving forward, because that does look a bit messy in certain lights. In terms of the construction, as I said to you before at the start of the video, I couldn't actually find much information about the specifications of the head on the website, which is something I think they need to address, because people want to know what they're buying right. I didn't know whether it was carbon, titanium, both. I didn't know what it was. So fortunately for me, obviously I've got a contact at LA Golf where we source our samples from, and I asked the question. So what I've been told is this driver features a forged beta titanium cup face that is laser welded to a cast titanium body. So essentially it's an all titanium head, and generally speaking, we know those are a little bit louder, a bit sharper on the acoustics, so that's something to look out for. So let's get some away, let's get some shots in the bank. I want to collect some data. I'm going to get a good sample size here, and once I've done that, we'll start comparing some numbers. Right, well, I've been left scratching my head a little bit there looking at the data. So I said I was going to compare it. So what I've been comparing it to is, prior to this, I hit a bunch with my current gamer, which is a Callaway Elite Triple Diamond at 8 degrees, which is what I set the LA Golf product to, in a Ventus Velo Core plus 6X Black. So that's what I've got my comparison data to. It's what I play, it's what I know. And just running through the data, it's interesting. So I'll start with ball speed. So from my current gamer, I was getting 172.1 miles per hour on average from 117.9 miles an hour clubhead speed. From the LA Golf driver, I was getting 169.3 miles per hour from 118.1. Whilst that's basically the same in terms of clubhead speed, it is still technically more. It's 0.2 miles an hour more. So I was getting less from more, so I wasn't getting as efficient output. Now, it looks like when delving into kind of the club data around that, there's some reasons for it. So the LA Golf driver was spinning a lot more for me. So I was spinning that nearly 3,000 revs per minute, 2,952 on average, whereas my gamer, I was spinning at 2,419. Now, this is where I'm going to talk a little bit about where I think the sort of online fitting process falls down a little bit. I've been very much fit into that Callaway Elite Triple Diamond driver. I've used that Fujikura Ventus black shaft for a good while now, so I know it works for me and I know it reacts in the way I need it to during delivery. I would say I've got to correct myself a little bit, because I said earlier in the video I thought I was fitted into the A-Series LA Golf shaft. As I was testing then, I began to notice some very faint writing on the shaft here, and it is actually the Bryson series low 65W6 shaft, which to me, as soon as I picked it up, it felt just a little bit softer in the tip than what I've currently been using. Ventus Black is a very tip stable product, so it felt there was a little bit more give down the tip end. And I think, to me, what I saw there in terms of the ball data coming from the club data, that makes sense. So my average strike with mine was 1 millimeter into the heel with the gamer and 9 millimeters low on the face, whereas it was very similar horizontally. I was only 1 millimeter in the toe with the LA Golf driver, but a couple of millimeters lower in the face. Now, what can happen when you've got a shaft that's a little bit softer down the tip end? There's two bits of movement or bending that will affect strike location. So we get shaft droop, where the shaft will bend this way. So essentially you create a flatter lie angle and the toe will come a little bit closer to the golf ball. So that might explain why I was a couple of millimeters more out of the toe than I was with the gamer. But you also get lead deflection, where the shaft will want to bend this way a little bit through impact. And as the shaft bends that way, it wants to come up a little bit, so the leading edge gets a touch higher and the strike location comes lower. And that's pretty much what I saw, and that's what I'm attributing it to from a feel point of view. However, when we're talking about dispersion, and that's really the message of this driver, it's been touted as something that will turn those hooks into draws and those slices into fades. Truth be told, I'm not seeing that on the averages there, and the average is a very difficult column to take that seriously, because you can have one that goes 60 yards right and one that goes 60 yards left that gives you an average of 0.0 and makes it seem very straight. But on that average, the Callaway, I was averaging 0.7 yards left, whereas with the LA Golf driver, I was averaging 13.9 yards to the right. But again, like I said, that can be a slightly misleading number. However, even when I go my worst to worst, you know, I was 41 yards right, 39 yards right with the LA Golf, versus my worst offlines were 34 and 34 with the Callaway. So everything just seemed a little bit tighter. But once again, I do wonder whether that's far more to do with the shaft. The head actually feels really very stable. And as I've said, I love that concept of matching that face curvature to speed. It makes a lot of sense. But the shaft didn't feel right for me. It felt very different to that Fujikura Ventus that I play. So I'm attributing a lot of that to that. So if there was some constructive criticism for LA Golf, for me, this product is just shrouded in a little bit too much mystery, and that's very Bryson-esque. There's lots about Bryson we don't know, some of the testing he does, prototype this. It's very Bryson. However, if you're trying to persuade people to part with their hard-earned cash for a product, I think you need to give more information, certainly on the website. Like I said, I couldn't even find what the product was made of without contacting my contacts at LA Golf to find out a little bit more about that. I would also want to know things about the loft sleeve. What increments does it go in? When I go down on that loft sleeve, because I've only got the one loft within my head family of 10-10, what's that doing to the face angle? What's that doing to the lie angle? Again, I don't have that information to hand, so I would personally love to know that as a fitter and a consumer of that product, and I think a lot of people out there would too. However, I would love to do this test again with my gamer shaft, but I don't have an LA Golf adapter. They don't sell those separately. They haven't sent me them separately, so I'd like to do a call out to LA Golf. That'd be great if you could send me an adapter that I can put on my gamer shaft, or on a shaft that I feel is more suitable, so we can get more apples to apples. So in summary, I think it's got real potential. The concept's great. As I was concerned about the fitting process, I wonder whether that's let it down a little bit here. Remains to be seen. Watch this space.